Okie dokie, folks. So my name is Lisa Randoll, and I am a political science professor here at St. Charles Community College. I've been here since 2010, the year before the Cardinals won the World Series, not that that matters. Since 2013, I have annually had this event at SCC Democracy, Open Mic Forum, where you guys get an opportunity to talk with each other about current events. And let's be real, since we didn't meet in person last year with this open mic because of COVID, a lot of things have happened in a year and a half. So we have plenty of things to talk about. I have a microphone to myself, and I have a microphone that I will run literally around the room. I came prepared to do cardio. Now I run around the room to have you all talk with each other. It can be any current event you want. The only stipulation is that when you talk to each other, it needs to be respectful. I know talking about political issues sometimes can be tense, and it's okay if the conversation's uncomfortable, because some topics are just uncomfortable. But know that our goal here is to teach you that it's possible to have these conversations and like each other at the end. So today's goal is to talk about things going on in the news, issues that you guys are facing personally, and to do it in a civilized, friendly manner. Is there anyone who has a current event they'd like to start with? Like, raise your hand if you want to start.
So I thought about this before coming here, and I just wanted to speak on something that was just personally relevant because I thought that, it'd be more authentic. So as an Asian American, especially during COVID, we've seen a huge rise in anti-Asian hate crimes across the United States and also in other countries. And that's something that's been definitely a worry on my mind, having a sister, a mom, and seeing that, it's definitely been a worry. I've had to worry about, for the safety of my mom, my sister. I had to buy them, pepper spray. And, seeing the news, seeing our elderly people get attacked was something that's especially hurtful for Asian Americans. I believe this, as East Asians, we respect our elders, and that's a huge part of our culture. And also recently, this last spring, I had my uncle from Korea come work here temporarily with his company near Atlanta, and we visited him. And I also worried about his safety because, he's not someone who speaks English. He definitely stands out. And we were actually there, we left Atlanta the day the attacks on the Asian spas happened. And definitely that was a reality check, thinking, I worried about, I sometimes frequent Asian businesses, what if those businesses get shot up and I happen to be there? And it's not like Asian hate has been a new thing, but especially with the rhetoric around the coronavirus, things like calling it China virus, Wuhan virus, Kung Flu, all those things. Even though I know a lot of people may not think it's a big deal, especially when you're not part of the culture and experience it from a day-to-day basis. But I guess my point to open discussion is like, what could the student body itself and also the school do to better support the Asian American community, the Asian American students in its body, to stand up against these things, which is affects some of us who go to the school very personally.
Okay. Anyone have a response to that or want to comment on that?
I wouldn't have anything to say other than I understand. I understand where you're coming from, especially with when Trump was at its height, the trans community, we definitely felt under attack, and a lot of people ignored that. And it's weird to see people close to you not understanding the threat that your community is under.
Anyone else? So I think, I'm not a student, obviously, but I think something that is worth saying is that sometimes we don't know something's real until someone tells us it's real. And like I guess you as a trans individual and you as an Asian American, things that like cisgendered white people don't. And like we don't understand because we haven't been through the things, but you making us aware of the things helped us know better. And now that we know better, it's up to us, as Maya Angelou said, to do better. So since we know these things are real, it is now up to us to try to make a positive impact in the community around us. Anyone has a comment or another question? Next current event. Anyone? Anyone? Come on. Be brave. Anyone want to talk about COVID or the vaccine or the mask mandates? Who's got their hand up? Way back there.
Something that's personally been worrying me are the increased abortion laws across the United States that are just getting stricter and stricter, it seems, as time goes on, where you'd think once women have gained rights that it would start to get more lax, but it almost seems like history is like repeating itself and it's just getting more and more like oppressed. It's hard to believe that today in 2021 in the United States, which is supposed to represent, freedom and free will and you can do whatever you want sort of thing, obviously within law, that there are places where you can't get an abortion due to incest or rape. You just can't, even though if that's the charge. And especially with the Texas one being the most strict, 6 weeks, which many women at least, don't know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So it's, to me, it's unfathomable to just punish somebody for something that they didn't even know was going on with them, especially something so personal as their own body. And especially, like, it's just even more outlandish that rideshare, like Uber or Lyft, people can get taxed, like at a minimum of like $10,000 and get fined for just taking a woman to an abortion clinic, even if they don't know like that woman's getting an abortion or anything. They just drop them off and they could get fined $10,000, which is just not, people aren't going to help women if they know. And it's legally like now your job to report close friends or family if they are like 6 weeks past and thinking about getting an abortion somewhere. And personally, I just think that's awful, and I continue to worry about threats like that in the future. Like, I'm 16. Obviously, I can't support kids, or I'm not financially able to support kids, but it's scary to think in some places that there's other 16-year-olds that are going through school, and that just something awful could happen to them, or just an accident, and they are punished for that, and something that would reflect their entire life, and just take it down.
Okay. Okay, anyone want to comment on that? Abortion is always one that people want to talk about. Any feelings on it? Okay. Who had their hand up? Okay. Okay, that's all right. You keep talking. That's all good.
I feel like I'm going to talk about this a lot because a lot of these issues do impact me directly, especially a lot of the stuff that's going on. But yeah, like stuff like abortion and surgery, things like that, they only affect people without the means, because the lawmakers that are making it, they're going to be able to go somewhere else. Like, for example, when the laws were starting to go down that were limiting minors from getting gender reaffirming surgeries under any circumstance, any top surgery surgeon stopped talking to me in this state. I went to Michigan because I had the means. Other people without the means won't be able to go somewhere else. This is something that's going to affect more poor people, more people of color than anyone else. And there's also the argument that by these laws targeting people of color even more, and this being like, it's going to limit people's right to vote by like doing this. It's structural racism, and like I feel like I'm bringing up a bunch of other topics into one, but these things all do connect.
Okay, I think that's true. Anyone else? Okay.
So like with the abortion thing, like when you have sex, you know there's a risk of getting pregnant, but there should be, and like if you can't financially afford it and stuff, like there should be things that you can do to alternate the pregnancy or whatever. But I do think 6 weeks is way too early, and that law is not fair, especially like being a woman. It's hard to see that, because that is kind of my right. Like you're taking that away from me. And so I don't think that's right, but at the same time, like, you know, going into it, you have a chance of getting pregnant. So if you can't afford it or whatever, like, it should kind of be up to you. So.
Who else? Oh, good, I don't have to fund.
I definitely don't agree with abortion, but I think it's very unfair to make a law about women's bodies. And there's just so many circumstances that comes with getting pregnant. Everybody's different. I don't think it's very fair to have a law and like a set date for any of that.
Anyone else?
Just to add on earlier, I also think just these like, I mean, I know there's women making these laws too, but that the majority is just like white men making these laws, people that don't have wombs, or people that don't actually carry the child or anything. And so like, I think I can't see it ever happening where women would make laws that would restrict men's bodies in any way, just because of, obviously, women were oppressed and still are in many places. And that's another thing that I just think it doesn't seem very equal, because I can't think of any laws that a woman would make about men's bodies that would actually pass or be legal anywhere, because they just don't have that power in the court.
So, like, not to make light of an issue like this, but I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said if men were required to have birth control, it would come in 3 flavors: ranch, buffalo, and extreme taco. So I thought that was really funny. Anyone else have a comment on this issue? Who was it? Okay, I knew it was one of you.
Okay, so basically I just want to say like what she said over there about men like making these laws for women's bodies. When I think of that law in Texas, I think about like a bunch of old white men sitting around in cowboy hats, like, you know, making these laws, thinking them up just to try to, you know, make abortion illegal without like actually doing it so that it doesn't get knocked out by the Supreme Court or addressed. You know, so I just think that's basically why they made it 6 weeks and didn't try to make it illegal in Texas, because they wanted to make it as early as possible so most women couldn't get an abortion. But yeah, just to and to touch on what they said over here about the trans community and them not having the ability to have access to their reassignment surgeries and stuff like that. I just think that it's ridiculous that some places are refusing to do that surgery. It should be like if you're a specific doctor, you have your rights to your own choice, but like hospitals and organizations shouldn't be making those rules that you can't do it, like specific doctors. Yeah.
Of, you know, being prosecuted if these laws went through, so they couldn't schedule anything.
Right.
So they discontinued contact.
Right. Yeah. So like, I just think that like those two things, like abortion and like the reassignment surgeries, they just kind of go together because it's like, it's your body, your choice. It shouldn't be about anyone else or anything like that.
They also go hand in hand with like hysterectomies, stuff like that, ways to prevent people from getting pregnant, because as much as like women's rights to these sort of things are like limited, it's like people are much more willing to talk about like sterilizing trans people, but women that want to get sterilized don't have that option nearly as often.
I was so going to say that. So me and my husband, well, my husband knows that I'm going through some, we'll say, reproductive issues. And there is a threat that I may have to get a hysterectomy. And even if it's medically necessary for me to get a hysterectomy, my husband has to sign off on it. Like, he literally has to go into the doctor with me and sign papers saying it's okay that she does not have children. And like, so I'm sure with abortion and with trans gender reaffirming surgery, I mean, they're big decisions, but they're not decisions that people go through lightly most of the time. You know, I do not want children. There's a reason I teach college kids, because all the children would be dead. I'm kidding, not really. But like, I want to be able to send you home at the end of the day and go home to my fur children. But I should not need a man's permission to go get a hysterectomy. That's crap. In the same way that if someone, you know, is trans, they should have the right to make their decisions. If someone is in a circumstance where having a child is not, you know, feasible or responsible, they should have the right to make those choices too.
So, I don't know. I also, I want to try this. Anyway, so I always find it, I don't know, I'm trying to say this in the most respectful way. I always find it ironic to me that certain, like, for example, if you take like the pro-life stance, and I'm not, like, I came from a religious background, so I understand that, like, I'm not religious anymore, but like, I understand like the reasoning behind it. But for me is, I think there's a lot of discussion that kind of like, there's a lot of fluffy talk at times. And I think honestly, if people really, like, we really want to talk about being pro-life, I also think it's inconsistent to be against universal health care, against immigrants coming into this country, fleeing, you know, violence. Like, if you really truly want to say you are pro-life, pro-humanity, like, you will support all these things in humanity, all life, regardless, because and if you really want to lower the rate of abortions, you would support things like social programs that help make things like raising a child affordable, because in this country, people living on minimum wage cannot afford children, let alone rent. But I was also like, I don't know if I can change the topic a little bit because I had something. Is it okay?
There you go.
Okay, so I know this might be controversial, but I just want to say this as a person of color. And I want to preface this by saying white privilege is not a negative thing. It's just simply like any other privilege, like myself being an American. I have certain rights that other people in other countries may not have. You know, it's not a negative thing per se itself. Seeing as this is mostly a white space currently, I, as a person of color, would like to ask, what do white people here think that they can do to use their white privilege in a positive way to react positive change in our society?
Okay, I understand I'm not white, so I'm not talking about that. But about the hysterectomy things, it's more of a question, isn't it, when, like, if you have so many children or you're a certain age, you don't need a men's like approval on it?
Once you are beyond childbearing age, so once you can no longer have kids, once you're through menopause.
Oh, I thought it was when like you have like so many kids.
No, it is only when you can't.
Oh, that's all I had.
Yeah, it's crap. As long as you can have kids, they want to make sure your man's okay with you not having kids. And I promise, my husband's totally fine with it.
So I have a bunch of things to talk about there. First, with what you said, I believe that there should be no such thing for an argument of small government so small that it can fit in a woman's uterus and basically control whatever they want to do with it. I don't believe in that at all, and I believe most of you here would probably agree with me in that a bunch of 65 plus white men should not be dictating how this country moves forward. Also, with what your question there of what white people should do is, put simply, vote, learn, listen. There are so many things that we can do that have been said for decades now that we have just simply been either too ignorant to actually listen to, or we've tried and we've just gotten lost.
Or we didn't do it.
Or we just didn't do it, or we did the exact opposite. Fear, as FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I believe that that's 100% true, and I believe that we can overcome that very, very easily if we simply communicate with each other. And like you said over there, you don't believe necessarily in abortion, but you also don't believe that someone should be telling, a higher power should be telling an individual person to not get one. And I understand that, and I know that that's a lot of people that actually feel that way. And so I just don't understand why a small group of people should be dictating for us how we can choose for ourselves.
Okay, anyone? Okay. And if you're raising your hands, please raise them high so I can see them.
I'm also just kind of a little bit bringing back to like pro-life and how if you're going to be pro-life, you should support like all communities, all life forms. Speaking from personal experience, I have a 24-year-old brother with severe autism, and we, I mean, there are countless encounters we've had with people in the past just being rude or, you know, everything, just people don't understand or people don't like, and anything that people can't understand, usually they're cruel or cold to them. And just what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to be pro-life, I'd really love for like all life forms to be supported, because I mean, just trying to get him a job, the paperwork you have to do, everything you have to file for, like we got took off Medicaid because he wasn't deemed autistic anymore, because I guess they know what an autistic person looks like, and my mother, who's been an autism teacher for 30 years, doesn't. So we don't get like any financial support for him anymore when Trump was in office, and we haven't been able to get it again. And that's just therapies that we could be paying for him, but we can't. That's just having a caseworker that we do pay for, and just many small things that would support him better and have him live a better life, because he can't live a quote-unquote normal one. He can't go to college. He can't drive a car. And none of those things are options for him. So I think that our government should try and make people with disabilities' life as good as it can get. I mean, there's certain things they can't do, yeah, but they can do many other things. He's now working at Orchard Farm Middle School in the cafeteria. It's his second week. And so, like, he's working a minimum wage job, and that's amazing. He's a working member of our household. But that took over a year to get the paperwork in. That was just the paperwork. It wasn't an interview. He got the job first interview. They loved him. And it was just sending things to and fro from the government to get this paperwork finalized. And when they do send you something, it's about 100 pages and doesn't make any sense. I think we just need to refine that system so people from lesser fortunate families that maybe don't have the money to spend on caseworkers or like rideshare people for him, that they should just support that. Because many of the people that have the pro-life stance are also, I am making a generalization here and I understand that, but in my experiences, this is just what's come out as true, but many of the people that are pro-life tend to be somewhat negative towards people with disabilities. And that is just my experiences. And I understand there's people that haven't, but I've been to Jeff City and I've talked to our representatives, and quite honestly, I was shocked at what they told me after I told them this exact same thing. So this is just me throwing that out there as just a topic. I don't know many other people with that have struggled with disabilities or siblings with disabilities or parents, but I understand it's not really a spoken about topic, and I don't think that it gets nearly enough recognition.
So, who's got there? So on my way over there, something I was told once is that there are degrees of thinking and intelligence, right? And we all have them. And I was taught that the lowest form, or the lowest form of thinking is your opinion. Because, like, not you, the opinion. Because it is something that comes from inside you. Like, it doesn't require any outside influences at all. The highest form of thinking is empathy, because it forces you to consider what something might be like from someone else's standpoint. And I think your instance with the disabilities, I think his example with being trans, I think the racism issue, I think all of those things could be better addressed by everyone in society if we tried to understand each other. Not just listen to each other, but understand. Like, we have to be active participants in every conversation we're in. So it can't just be you hear them, you have to process, try to put yourselves in the same positions that they've been in. And I think that is something that college gives you the opportunity to do, to be exposed to different types of people so you can feel things the way they may have, explained to you that they felt. Obviously, it would be hard for me as a white person to feel exactly how a person of color feels, but by them telling me this is a thing I've gone through and this is how I felt, I have an access to that new experience that I had previously not had. And I encourage you guys to take advantage of every opportunity you get to empathize with the people around you. Engage in that highest level of learning. Okay, go ahead.
Mine definitely goes off that, and like what he said back there about voting and learning to help people. I just think, at least for me personally, it can get really confusing. On my immediate family, my brother is transgender, and I support him 100%, but then the other half of my family, and we all support him, but the other half of my family is very like pro-Trump and pro-life and all of this stuff that it just gets very, very confusing, and it's like you don't want to step on toes, kind of, because I just feel so attacked either way I try to think of it. So it just gets very confusing.
100% feel that.
I want to go back to the white privilege. I'm not white, of course, but I am a woman of color. And I think sometimes we're afraid to deal with those issues because it kind of steps on people's feet. But one thing it is we fear what we don't know. And you look at people and you look at their backgrounds and you don't know them and you fear instead of getting to know them. I was looking at our Facebook, neighborhood Facebook, and it said the other morning, because they're moving out here, our neighborhood is getting bad. And I posted on there and I asked the lady, what did she mean by they are moving out here? And she said blacks and people of color. And of course that's an ignorant statement. But these are the same people who kids are going to interact with the people of color. And it's very safe to say that her son or her daughter may bring home a person of color to date. I have 5 children. I am married. My husband is a pastor. My husband is a former cop. My husband has 4 degrees, working on a doctorate. We own businesses. We have the same rights and privileges. You have the same right and privilege as anyone here in this building. And I think until we start seeing ourselves greater, then they won't see us any better. And I'm not trying to separate us from anyone, but it's until we see ourselves greater. I don't see myself as a minority. I see myself as greater because I'm working just as hard as my counterparts, the person sitting next to me, my children are. You be proud of what you are. I have 4 children in college now, in prestigious college. I have a son that plays at Mizzou right now. I don't care. If, at this point, ignorance, if people are going to be ignorant, allow them to be ignorant. You just be great. And I'm saying that because I'm probably almost one of the oldest people in the room. You know, and I'm saying that because there are a lot, I'm listening to a lot of the younger people in here. You have the right to choose. Yes, my husband is a pastor, but I was raped. And I cannot say if I would have got pregnant that I would not have aborted the baby. I cannot say that. You cannot say what you would do until you are in those shoes. We have all had some type of racist inkling in our body. Even when 9/11, you know, was going on, we have all felt some type of way. But if we stay ignorant to the situations, we will never grow. My son is dating a white young lady now, and her parents called, and they asked to go to dinner with us the other night. And the first thing they wanted to know, what do you guys do? What do you do for a living? And so you have to sit here and give a resume. Oh, we own this business, we do this, and we do that. And at first I felt like we were on a job interview until they said, oh, well, we're from the same neighborhood you're from. So it's not always privilege. Sometimes it's what they don't know. Sometimes you are a monster in their eyes until they really get to know who you are. But it's who you see yourself as, not what somebody else sees you as.
Anyone else? Who wants to follow that? Good, it's not me. Just want to make sure it's still on.
I mean, I don't have much to say. I just want to say, like, that was very, what's the word, moving. And I just, like, I'm obviously not white, but I'm obviously not African American either. But, like, nobody will understand, like, what they go through, what you go through. Because we're, like, even me as not being white, like, I've never been racially profiled or this and that because I'm just simply not black. And it's just, it sucks to see that because people are like, oh, all people of color. But no, if you really break it down, it's not. It's subjected to the black community more often than not. And I just think it's, like she said, it's just ignorance at this point in time. And there's only so much you can do about it. And at the end of the day, you just got to make sure, like, you're okay with who you are. And people need to realize it's just really focused on one party still to this day. It's not just, if you have a skin tone, no. It's just them, in my eyes. And that's how I see everybody else, too. That's what I have to say.
Anyone else? Okay. Who? Oh, sorry.
So I kind of wanted to bring up about the reconstructive surgery and stuff like that. I too have reproductive problems, and to get surgery, I had to be married, which I wasn't of age. I don't want to be married, so why would I? And I can't go into military because of it, and there's so many things that I cannot do just because I was born different. And people can say, I can't do this. What am I supposed to do?
I just want to say, like, basically with, like, the whole, like, basically what he said over here, the pro-life people trying to like say like, oh, don't have an abortion, just like blah blah blah, and maybe you should support all of the people, you know. I just think that pro-life people are so quick to say, oh, don't have an abortion, just put it up for adoption. But you know what, like the foster care system is not not very good, you know. Speaking from experience, like I was in the foster care system for a few years. It's like I wasn't there, like I was 16 when I got thrown in there, but speaking from what I've seen, like it's really hard to like get like where you're going. It's really hard to like get into contact with people, and like, you know, it's really hard to get that support that you need and everything. But yeah, I just want to say like they're so quick to just say that, but why don't you support like making these changes to help support having less abortions, you know? Like no, like you shouldn't use like, and some people say like, yeah, like I'm pro-choice, but I don't believe that you should use abortion as a method of birth control, you know. And I completely like, you know, like obviously like that takes a huge toll on your body, and like honestly like yeah, like you shouldn't use it as that. But at the end of the day, like people just make these like ideas in their head without thinking about what it's affecting. Like you can't just throw a child, it's like flipping a coin when you throw a child into the foster care system. Are they going to get loving parents, or are they going to get thrown in homes and jump around from group home to group home, you know? So it's like, it's just like we should be focusing on making these things better for the children if we're going to put them up for adoption, you know? Why would you bring a child into this world if you are going to put them up for adoption and have them have a miserable life? What's the point?
I wore the good shoes today.
So I wanted to touch on what she said about the foster care system. I can't speak from experience from being in the system, but I have had altercations in the past. And it's so just...
Talking to the mic more.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just so hard to put kids in the foster system and in orphanages and stuff like that when there's over 400,000 kids in the system already. Like, and when it touches back with abortion, like, how are you going to say we're going to put more kids into the adoption, like into the foster system? Like, it's messed up right now. And as somebody actually going into social work, I just want to like try to help the kids get out of that, because like she said, it's like a 50-50 chance that you're going to get like a good home. Like, would you want to bet your life on getting on a coin? Like, it's ridiculous.
Who's next? Are we done with abortion? No, we're not done. Who is it?
I feel like not all pro-life people, but a good majority are pro-birth. They're not pro-life because they don't care what happens to those kids once they get put into the foster care system. And if they want to stop abortions, they need to reform the foster care system. Like, I feel like that's a big problem.
Sorry. Into the mic.
Okay. So I was hoping I could say something else. I did wanted to like address the men in this room as and something that's been a big passion of mine is things pertaining to, which is very relevant to a college campus like this, things relating to like feminism, equality, and like sexual assault and rape and things like that, which, you know, is an uncomfortable topic, but is very relevant, especially on a college campus, unfortunately. And I was, you know, I think first as a man, I'm not a cishet man, but, you know, as a man, I think we need to address this within as men in the community. We need to listen to women, first of all, respect them, respect their humanity, their dignity. I didn't really, this didn't become a passion of mine until I was sexually assaulted in high school. And I regret that, I regret that that's the event that really pushed me in that direction. And I hope us as men can really create a culture that fights toxic masculinity, that fights the rape culture that exists so much in today's society, that devalues women, that doesn't understand the concept of fucking consent, which is not just about sexual consent, but consent as a whole topic in life. And I hope we can normalize things, that we can normalize talking about these things and holding other people accountable when we see misogyny, when we see things that, like locker room talk, as people say, that we can make places a safer place where, think about it, as men, most of us have mothers, sisters, some female that we're close to in our lives. Would we want that to happen to them? Would we want those things that we normalize in society as men? When we bring it on a personal level, would we want that to affect them? I don't want my sister have to worry about, being in a parking lot alone at night. My mom, being in the job she's in. And I just hope that us men can really buckle down and really be honest and vulnerable with ourselves to really, to tackle this issue that's a really relevant issue in society.
Doing the side shuffle.
I really liked what our friend said about, basically just, I feel like we have to protect each other, men and women. It's not just us. There are things that happen to men too, and we know that, but the majority is women. And I really appreciate our friend and think that more people need to be like him, because it's not just us as teenage girls, it's children, it's older women, it's mid-40s, it's everybody, it's older men, it's younger men. This is just something that needs to stop. We are your counterparts, without us, to be honest, you would be nothing. So, you know what I mean?
Ah, crap.
Okay, going off what he said, obviously, statistically, it is, more women getting sexually assaulted and stuff, and I don't think guys realize it's not just, a touch. It's how you come off. It's how you say things. You can be saying things and think it's a joke, but if the girl's obviously uncomfortable and you just keep saying it, that's harassment. She doesn't want that. Stop. She's not into you. But something I kind of feel strongly about is the fact that there's certain stigmas around, say, a girl's at the gym and a guy takes a picture of her working out. That'd be an uproar. Everybody would be mad. They'd be like, you shouldn't be taking pictures of her working out her butt, blah, blah, blah. But when a girl does it, it's a different story. They're like, oh my gosh, she's so fine. And so, to me, that's so annoying. If you're going to say one thing and not condone one thing, don't condone it on the other gender. You can be like, oh, he looks really good in that outfit. And, you can tell him, I think you look good. But say somebody said it to you, oh, no, don't do that. That's not okay. I think everybody needs to realize that if you're going to feel so strongly about one thing, you have to reciprocate it yourself. Girls, yes, like I said, obviously it's us that have to deal with it more often than not, but we also have to realize sometimes we're doing it as well. We're not taking it as far, or we're not doing as much, but as much as we get sexualized, we do the sexualizing as well. And I think if we want things to really change, we have to keep that in the back of our minds where we're also doing it.
Yep, totally agree. I think that we are a society of double standards in a lot of ways, and I think we totally do that. Oh. It's always the person right in front of me.
It is a really hard topic to talk about, rape and abuse, and like it's a good point to bring out the double standard that we have, but there are plenty of forms of abuse, and there isn't just an epidemic of people not believing male survivors. There's also an epidemic of people not believing women can be abusers and rapists and pedophiles. They get less punishment. I remember I noticed the signs that my sister was being sexually abused, and I knew who was doing it because she had attempted it on me in the past. And nobody would believe me that that was my little sister, that was her innocence was being like violated pretty much daily because she was my stepmother and she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and she wasn't in school. I was told that it was very rare for a female pedophile to seek out female victims when I knew the truth, and I don't believe the only thing that gave her any justice was the fact that she's not allowed to see her children anymore, but it had nothing to do with that. She wasn't allowed to see her children anymore because she became a drug addict, not because of how she abused her children.
Yikes. Okay, anyone else on, I think we started on abortion. Okay. And then we're totally doing a new topic because we're not talking about this the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I just had a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Just
That's
real
fine.
quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I understand like the double standard and things, but as a man, statistically speaking, I think we know that violent crime is large majority men and specifically cishet men. I'm not a cishet man, but I understand like I still have a responsibility, and I think even like for me, I was my abuser was a man. You know, it wasn't like, so I think that's why I really wanted to focus on like the culture that men bring in society as a larger whole. Obviously, like there are the issues that are valid, but I feel like the biggest factor is that, and also the whole idea with like, also that you could also bring queerness into that, and like, you know, how we fetishize different identities, whether it be Asian women, lesbians, you know, where we fetishize other human beings, and that really dehumanizes them, devalues them, instead of seeing them as a whole person. And I think that can also have a huge impact on how we treat each other.
Okay, so I don't know how we got from abortion to these things, but that's okay because it's good. Is there anyone else that has any thoughts about this topic? Does anyone have a new topic? You guys are all doing really good. This is awesome. New topic. I have a list of topics that you really don't want me to pick from the teacher's list. Come on, someone else come up with something. You all are smart. You all are freaking ninjas. I love it. Okay, we're going to talk about COVID then. No. Yes. Okay, so how many of you have had COVID between now and like when the shit show started? Okay, did any of you end up in the hospital? Anyone get super sick? How many of you know someone who got super sick? Ooh, damn. Well, that's not good. Okay, so how many of you had to quarantine? Everyone had to quarantine. We were all stuck at home in March. Come on, hands up, solidarity. Since we were not here to talk about it last year, what was your experience with the whole COVID mess? Like, did you do okay through it? Were you more depressed? How did you cope with it? Like all of the things. Since he hasn't talked yet, we're going there first, then I'll get you next.
I will say that personally during quarantine, I had very, very bad mental problems to the point where I had to get diagnosed with 3 different disorders on the same day, and medicated, which is super nice now. But so, and it wasn't just during, I was doing a different college, and I failed epically because I couldn't do it with quarantine on top of starting college. So it really took a toll on my mental health, and I think it's taking a toll on a lot of college students, and that's a big part of what's going on today. So I think mental problems were a very big part of quarantine that nobody really realized would happen.
Okay. And you had something to say?
Just going back on like how the school experience was. For me personally, I don't know about anybody else, but it was terrible. I feel like I did not learn a single thing. I'm coming into these classes now completely unprepared because there was just nothing, there was no teaching involved over online schooling. Like, you're just given assignments and you do them. But it's like, now we're all in class, we're all doing this here, and it's just, for me at least, it's like 10 times harder.
Okay, other reactions to it? Oh, okay, you first, and I'm coming, I saw you.
I just think that we take a lot of things for granted until like it's like taken away from us. Like, I didn't realize how many people really needed school and how much like I needed in-person like schooling and learning until like we couldn't anymore. And I just really struggled with like taking the time to really do my assignments. And I remember I had a conversation with my teacher on Zoom, and she was like, you don't realize how many people aren't turning in their work, and like you're probably the only ones that is really doing your work and like doing these Zoom calls with me. And I was like, I just think a lot of people just need to like be grateful for like us going to school and us like in-person learning, because we don't know like when it could be taken away, just like last year.
And while I'm running over there, or like slowly trotting, so I've always up until quarantine taught in person. And the thing that I like about in-person teaching is like building the relationships with my students. And when we had to stop halfway through March that first year, like I felt like I was robbed of the opportunity to get to know my students better. And like there was lots of like, I'm not a crier, but there was lots of weeping that I never got to say goodbye. So there was that.
Well, kind of good to go off of what you said a little bit there. When we went away for March, it was a lot of closure not going away. That was my junior year. And there was so much that I wanted to do that year that just got completely taken away from me, from vacations to hanging out with friends to making new relationships. And that time there, it was completely robbed from me. And then my senior year, last year, my school, we actually went in person. So I went to Francis South Central. We were in person, but we had to wear masks, and it was always socially distanced. And I was a choir kid. And so the fun little thing about singing COVID-wise is that we had to wear this little mask thing that made us look like a duck. We were waterfowl, and we had to sit 6 feet apart from each other. And that entire thing itself, it was nice because we were in person, but it was also heartbreaking in the smallest ways because you could not have the exact same interactions you could have had simply a year ago. And that just hearing, for choir related, a small harmony there, you wouldn't be able to hear it because people are so far apart. Yeah. And we'd have to work so much harder to actually get the same amount of satisfaction. So like someone said over there, you really have to take for granted what you had before, because what I experienced was we had to do double the effort just to get that same guarantee and satisfaction there.
Yep.
Hey, I teach here in psychology. I'm some of y'all's teacher. And I just wanted to say something in response to like feeling unprepared because of the last year. 80% of community college students are in a remedial class. Like y'all for the last decade have generally been unprepared. Well, that sounds negative. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I mean is here at SCC, we are ready for you to be unprepared. We've got lots of supports and things for you, and you're not alone. Like lots of people have been unprepared. Lots of people already are. But we're ready to help you with that. So don't feel bad. Don't feel alone about it. We got you.
going back to that closure thing, I think that's definitely a big part of it, because I'm actually my senior year was the year that was when March went down. So I went home for spring break and never went back to school again. So that closure was definitely a part of it, which also goes back to definitely the mental stuff that I went on. So I just want to say that.
It was also my senior year too, and I felt like I didn't get a lot of closure. I didn't get to say goodbye to my teachers, anything like that. At first, I really liked quarantine because you kind of got an extra long spring break, but then it just kept going. And there were definitely a lot of, like, my teachers were saying that kids weren't turning stuff in, and it was really hard on more people because a lot of kids, some kids, rely on school for their meals. And then like the school started sending home meals, which I thought was great. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people really take for granted school, and I definitely miss high school, even though that's crazy and a lot of people don't, but I do because I didn't get to finish it. So yeah.
Well, you're right here. So,
me and Anya went to the same high school, and I was a junior when she was a senior, and so it was my senior year last year, and I just think the one thing I really missed was like seeing people's faces, and I still really do, because that's like I smile a lot, like I'm just like a positive person, and I think that was really a thing for me. Like I just wanted to see people's faces and see their reactions when I talked, and like see their reactions when they were telling a story. And also, like, I just think the school district was really unprepared to like go online, because they didn't really know, like most teachers didn't really know like how to do Zoom, or like how to like put things up on Canvas, like, and like do time tests and put them up for an extended period of time. And I also think, like, being a senior last year, it was just the guidelines was just really like sometimes contradicting itself. Like I was a cheerleader, and we were outside, and we still had to wear a mask even though we were 6 feet apart, and the football players didn't on the sidelines, and they were literally so close together. But it was a different guideline for one group and then a different guideline for another group. So I just think that was really annoying to me, because it was just like my senior year, and I knew it was being taken away from me, and I couldn't do anything about it. But I just wanted the same like equal like guideline as other people.
So, anyone else? Okay, so I'm coming. So when I walked back there, so going off something she said that like the masks kind of were annoying, that like you couldn't see facial expressions. So those of you who have had me before know, like, I'm gonna pull this down for a second. My face is disfigured, and so like wearing this whole quarantine time was the first time that people have looked at me as a human being when I've taught a class. Like not that you guys haven't, but what I mean is that like when the first perception they have is not you might be mentally handicapped, it's a pressure that I didn't have anymore. And so the idea of going back to real life with no masks means I have to deal with being me again. And so for some people the masks were burdensome, but the mask allowed me to escape from something. So it's not just masks weren't terrible for everyone. So there's that. Go ahead.
This is more just like an observation, but I'm very curious to see how like this generation looks like in the future when we're like in our 30s or 40s and stuff, and we're getting like more serious within degrees or jobs or whatnot. Just because like we've had like two full years of very important time of our lives just kind of be like stunted a little bit because COVID. I was sent home my freshman year, so I've actually never had a normal year of high school. I was sent home in March freshman year. My sophomore year was completely virtual. In that time, I moved from I went to Seckman High School, so I moved from there to here. I didn't say goodbye to anybody. I mean, I saw maybe 2 friends to say goodbye to, and I only keep in touch with one of them. And moved here. I don't really know anybody. Decided to go to college for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm a junior, but I just wanted to get my degree early. And I know that technically I could have like had a more normal year than I probably had so far for my junior and senior years, but it's just like this ripple effect that happened, that this like perfect high school image kind of just was destroyed. And I think it is interesting because I think people are taking more chances than perhaps they would before. Personally, I've been planning to do this for a while. So it's quarantine I didn't say just like, oh, well, high school's like kind of messed up, so I'm just going to go full out. That wasn't my decision. Then it was my decision years before. But with other people, I've learned that they are learning new hobbies or becoming interested in things, or more people I know that have become more politically aware because of, obviously, during quarantine, that was like Trump, Biden, and that was also just lots of stuff on the news with COVID and everything. And I think a lot of people, it shaped people to be more aware and just educate themselves more on things like the Black Lives Matter movement. And I know that really, unfortunately, a lot of white people did some performance activism. Just they liked it when it was a quote-unquote trend, even though it's a human right and it shouldn't be treated as a trend. But I do think that there was positive outcomes just from people being more aware and having the time to sit back and look at the world and realize, like, from the outside, like what it really is, and what you don't really realize what you're missing until you don't have it anymore.
Right.
And so I thought that was really interesting.
Anyone else? Things that COVID screwed with your life with? Here we go.
A big thing with COVID right now is the vaccine. And I know it's a really touchy subject for certain people.
That's okay. That's what we do here.
But in my opinion, there's people that were on the bubble, I think, and the more you pushed it, the more it kind of got people who were like, oh, maybe I should get it, maybe I shouldn't, really push them off of it. I know there's a lot of people who can't get it due to health issues. So when a big group of people are pushing it, I think it should really be that person's choice. I know we're trying to protect everyone, and we want what's best for our country and for others, but I do think that it should be that person's choice if they want to get it or not. And it shouldn't be something that people should feel guilty about if they don't get it. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, just pass it back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then just like a quick example, when I was in 3rd grade, I got the flu shot, and then I got the flu, and then I got the swine flu, and then I was sick for like a month and a half because of that. And I've never gotten like another vaccine or shot before. So yeah, I definitely think it should be everybody's choice. I think it's important to try to protect everyone, but there's so many people where it's a 99% survival rate, and it just, for me, it doesn't make sense for me to get it, and I don't want to get slandered for not getting it.
Well, and there, like you have a good reason for not getting it. Like, that makes sense. Oh, there's all kinds of people who now want to talk. Okay, so here we go.
I just want to go back to what they said. I completely agree, because like at the beginning I wasn't even gonna get it, and then I realized that I probably should, just to protect my grandparents. My grandpa's a diabetic and I'm currently living with them, so I was like, okay, well, this is a good idea then. But if I weren't to get it, I didn't want to be like slandered for not getting it. Like, it's just like, if you have a high survival rate, like, good, like that's good for you, you know?
Okay, hands up so I can see who wants to say thanks. Gonna run around.
I'm sure a lot of us, or at least maybe some of us, are going into healthcare, like myself. And one thing that was really frustrating during COVID was the politicization of science, and just a lot of misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories being thrown around. And the mistrust of public health officials and their advice. You know, I don't think we would listen to you know, someone who's not in the healthcare field to tell us what we should do with our healthcare decisions, because obviously they're not experts on it. And it is really frustrating to see the politicization of it, because diseases don't care about your political affiliation, and like the attacks on healthcare workers. My mom's a nurse. You know, they've been working their asses off during COVID. They've been having to see COVID units full, where they've been having to turn people away. You know, and it really frustrates me to see all the misinformation, disinformation about, and also like coming from Asian culture, masks are completely normal. Like I wore masks as a kid, you know, a lot of times people in Korea, because of the pollution or something, it's completely normal. So from my perspective, masks were not, I mean, they're not comfortable, but yeah, they're not a huge deal. And also just the difference between the individualistic mindset and the collectivist mindset. I think there are some things that we need to do for the good of the people and not just be selfish and think about our own personal freedoms at the expense of others.
So going off that, go ahead.
Like I understand people want to argue about masks and stuff like that, but one thing I haven't really heard talked about a lot is during the beginning of the pandemic, where everyone starts working from home, doing things from home, there was a big hope with people in disabled communities that they would have more job opportunities in jobs that previously we were told that couldn't be done from home, and people who had to drop out of school because there weren't any online options and they couldn't go on campus for mental or physical disabilities. And people were hopeful that there was going to be a huge change, but the moment we saw any sort of dip in the numbers, people went straight back into offices, straight back into schools, and this was going to mean essentially nothing. Nothing was actually going to change for the people that were hoping for that. And we're seeing an even bigger influx in hate for like the anti-vaccine movement. I'm sorry to anyone who is offended by this, but it started with a hate for autistic people, a belief that we should prevent autistic people from existing. And by doing that, they thought that not getting vaccines was the way to do it. Now it's not autistic people that are getting people to not do vaccines. It's that people don't care about people with physical disabilities, the elderly, people that have trouble breathing, and people within the disabled community are in like a worse place off than ever. And the beginning of the pandemic was, nobody thought it would end up like this.
I think that is a fair assessment. Oh, for sure. Anyone else have a comment on what COVID has done for you or not done for you? So me and my husband have two beagles. We have an older, skinny, stubborn one named Marley, who gets into trouble all the time. And then we have a younger, fat one named Oliver, who is perfect in every way, including the freckles on his feet. And something about the being at home time was that we were always home with them. And they got very comfortable with us always being home. And I don't know if you guys had this experience where your little four-legged friend did a thing, but regularly, Marley, being the little shit that she is, she interrupted Dr. Randoll's history classes on numerous occasions. And now she is at home in Beagle prison, waiting for me to get done with this presentation to go home and pet her and release her from jail. And I bet you that us going back to normal really had a huge impact on our pets. And they are like some of the only creatures in the world that can't tell us how it changed them. So like, I'm glad my schedule is the way it is, but I'm sure a lot of people went from being home all the time to being gone for 8 hours. And I cannot imagine how traumatic that would be for our animals. So that's something too. Yay dogs. Anyone else? 5 minutes. Huh? Okay, anyone else have a comment or one more question you want to ask? Oh, we do.
this is just super quick, but it was like an interesting fact that kind of tied into that. But a lot of people like adopted animals or bought animals around that time.
Pandemic puppies.
Yeah, the pandemic puppies. I have one, but also my dad works from home, so somebody is with her all the time. But it's sad because my friends, like a friend of my friend, works at Vets and like an animal adoption center, and a lot of people came in and adopted animals, and then like 5 months later came back to give them back because they just couldn't like support them anymore, and they were kind of an impulse buy. But I don't know, I thought that was sad. Personally, my fat 9-year-old cat could not care less where I am. So that doesn't really apply to me in like the animal wise. But yeah, I just thought that was really sad.
How many of you guys had a family that rescued an animal during COVID? Anyone rescue puppies? Okay. Cat or dog? What about you? Yay. Okay, cool. All right. Anyone else have a comment on COVID or any of that? Okay. So it is like 10 after. So I'm going to go ahead and say this was amazing. And everyone who participated said lots of like awesome, insightful things. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this event. If you are supposed to be here for my class, I saw you, so don't worry about saying something. I was being the American government police as I walked around. Everyone else who has to sign in for attendance for your classes, there's sheets over there. Have a great day, and may the force be with you.